Music is one of the integral elements of the recent Persona franchise. The soundtracks are just as good, if not better, than the game themselves. So it's fitting that out of all the many genres that the Persona franchise has touched, whether it be fighting games or dungeon explorers, we now have music rhythm games with Persona 3 Dancing by Moonlight and Persona 5 Dancing by Starlight. I have Matt here to talk about these two games. What do you think?
So Persona 3 and Persona 5 Dancing, we'll call it Dancing All Night now because I'm not going to repeat myself, is essentially a game where the narrative is a very simple premise compared to Persona 4 Dancing All Night. Instead of having its own story mode, it's basically the P3 cast and the P5 cast compete in a dance-off in the Velvet Club. In their dreams. That's essentially all it is. And honestly, in my opinion, I know you have some issues with it, but it's a far more earnest take as far as rhythm games go.
Like you say earnest, I say it as more cynical, as in at least Persona 4 at least pretended that this is a real game with real canon and everything like that. P3 and P5, Dan, it's just you fanboys, we know exactly what you want. Have your dancing, have your dress-ups, have your remixes, and you will take it because you will enjoy it and you have already bought 5 copies, which I have. Yes. But still, I at least want to pretend that that's not the case.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's when it comes to like rhythm games and dancing games in general, you know, what you get out of it is how much you put in. And with this one, as long as you just lower your standards a little bit, Persona 3 and Persona 5 really scratches that itch, but probably not the itch that you're trying to scratch. But let's talk about the actual game element itself. So with the game, you're going from center to the outward, utilizing and nailing notes in precise order as a rhythm game would suggest. And again, a lot of the sins of the father and the issues plagued by P4 Dan actually carry on through to P3 and P5.
Yes, like it's like the reason that they have the notes going from the center of the screen to the edge is just so you can have your characters front and center, you can see them do the choreography, but it's all inherently flawed because as a rhythm game, it is impossible to keep track of the notes going outside of the screen. You're constantly looking at the game's fringes, and sure, the beat maps kind of reflect that, but on higher difficulty, it is not impossible to try and figure out which notes to hit and at what time. And because you're looking at the fringes the entire time, you're not looking at the center of the screen with the character and the choreography. It's just, it doesn't seem well thought out.
Yeah, it seems that the foreground and background always seem to be competing for your attention, which when it comes to rhythm game design is a big fat no-no because you'll be dropping notes and you won't be getting them, timing them right. I do prefer P3's aesthetic, like muted tones and colors a lot better than P5's, where P5 is really in your face and all that sort of stuff, which is great for an RPG that's really kind of, I guess, foregoing all the conventions of RPGs. But for a rhythm game, it's a little too busy on screen.
Like, it's a shame that the gameplay itself is so flawed because the music underneath it all has always been good for a Persona, and it continues to be good here. As in, you get all your classic, your Burn My Dread, your Persona 5 songs as well.
Get out there.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have remixes to all these tracks as well, and they hit different genres from your jazzy remixes to your more techno-electro remixes, and they're all surprisingly pretty good as well.
Yeah, they're very solid in premise, but for those who have played the P4 Dancing All Night and are expecting a far more diverse track list, they're going to be a little bit disappointed because there are several songs that do repeat in remixes several times. So Burn My Dread, for example, comes up 3 times in different mixes, which is going to be a bit concerning for people like me who do prefer more of a diverse list. But if you're a person who just loves, like, you know, maybe 10 tracks out of all the soundtrack in total, you're probably not going to be too fazed by it.
And I will say there was one piece of fan service that I was glad they did have. In Persona 5 anyway, they had live concert footage as one of the tracks, and I was pretty giddy at that. But that's the only piece of fan service that impressed me with this game. Otherwise, the wrapping around the game just seems cynical and empty, whilst the gameplay itself seems highly flawed and not a particularly good rhythm game.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to like Dave and Margaret here, but I personally didn't find too much issue with the game itself. However, that caused me to actually have to lower my standards. And unfortunately, in this industry, as a consumer and as a reviewer, you shouldn't be doing that too much too often.
It's also kind of a shame that we as are reviewing here, because ultimately the people who want this game have already bought this game, haven't you? I know I have.
Yeah, let's be honest with ourselves.